What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Rocky Review series, and now we have moved on to the Creed chapter of this legacy, starting with the first film, Creed. Now, I already reviewed Creed 2 when it came out a couple of years ago. I will not be redoing that review because I watched it and none of my thoughts have changed on that film, so no reason to reiterate everything I said a couple of years ago. And tonight at 7 p.m., I'll be checking out Creed 3, and I'm extremely excited about that. So tomorrow afternoon, you will get the review, the final review, at least for now, for this franchise of Creed 3. So when this movie was first being talked about and being announced, I was just starting to kind of get my foot into speaking my mind publicly on films. I was doing a podcast in my walk-in closet for a few months, had not done YouTube quite yet. And when I was hearing whispers about this film, I was as skeptical as anybody. I'm not really a big fan of prequels or spin-offs that just seem to be trying to market off of the name and don't feel like there's a genuine creative urge to make that story. And through my own ignorance, because I did not research deeper into where the gestation of this story and this idea came from, to me, on its surface, just felt like a studio trying desperately to revive a franchise that was respectfully dead and gone. You know, we're gonna do a spinoff and we're gonna talk about Apollo Creed's son that we've never introduced or talked about in this franchise before, and Rocky's gonna come back and be the trainer. I think, oh, whatever, dude. Like, that's just such an obvious, ridiculous, creatively devoid idea. That's what I thought. Trailers came out, looked pretty good. Movie came out, reception was pretty good, still didn't have any interest in checking it out. You know, I wasn't obligated to go to the movie every single week like I am now, whether or not I have faith in a film or not. So I just cautiously waited and opted out of seeing the film in theaters, did not give it a chance until New Year's Eve, the year that it came out, and just decided to throw it on. I was like, I'm bored, I don't really have any emotional drive to watch anything particular, so I'll just throw on Creed. Even if it sucks, who cares? And I was blown away at how incredible this movie was.
We got one, right? 9, 0, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's it, baby. We got one, right? Woo!
Which goes to show you, your first instincts aren't always correct. I've gotten to the point where a lot of my instincts end up being correct, but that was one of the most genuine failures of my first instincts, to where just about every single assumption and every little cynical thought that I had about this film was proven absolutely incorrect. And since the success of Creed, we have gotten Creed 2, which I am also a huge fan of, and I have no reason to doubt that I will not be a big fan of Creed 3. So as far as spin-offs and continuing a franchise with a brand new character and a new direction and some new distinct flavor, this might be the biggest success story of them all. So starting off with the positives of Creed, basically everything that I had the lowest hopes for is the thing that I appreciate most about this film, which is that they can piggyback off of such a beloved and iconic franchise and character of Rocky Balboa, give us a brand new character with a whole different set of problems, a whole different set of personality and side characters, while absolutely holding on to the heart and the spirit and some of the most critical things that we all know and love and continue to go back to those original Rocky films for. Adonis Creed is a very different character than Rocky Balboa, and yet his path has so many similarities that hold on to the heart of why we all endeared ourselves to Rocky Balboa in the first place. He comes from a place where his early years was struggles and abandonment and familial death and things like that. And then eventually, because of the embracement of Marianne, Apollo Creed's wife, he got to live this very privileged life to where he wanted for very little, needed for nothing, but still had that drive inside of him, still had something missing, still had something that was whispering in his ear telling him, you can be more. You can do something else. This is your path. And so where his financial situation and his upbringing was extremely different than Rocky Balboa, and his attitude towards the world and some of his, immaturity for certain is very different than Rocky Balboa when we first met him, that drive is very similar, if not the same. Just that inner voice saying, this is who you are. You are meant for so much more. Realize your potential. And so I love the way that all of the things that I enjoy about the original Rocky films, that motivate me, that get me emotional, that inspire me about those original 6 films, continue to inspire me here. And because of the very different framing, the different characters, the new generation, the different lead character, there's potential for this movie and this Creed franchise to inspire a lot of younger people and new generations the way that a lot of people that grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s were inspired by the Rocky films.
You see this guy here staring back at you? Yeah? That's your toughest opponent. Every time you get into the ring, that's who you're going against. I believe that in boxing, and I do believe that in life.
And at the core of that is an incredible performance by Michael B. Jordan. I love this guy. I have loved him ever since I was introduced to him in Chronicle. He continues to be one of the best actors out there that can do pretty much anything. He can be dramatic. He can do the action route. He can go dark into some really depressing and emotional places. He can also be very charismatic and funny. And you get little bits of all of that in the character of Adonis Creed, somebody that has a lot of demons, that has a lot of things about him that tear him up inside, make him make some stupid decisions and be a little bit overconfident and not listen so well, or be extremely emotionally reactive and act out at people when he should be a little bit more reserved. And it's those things, those human elements that Michael B. Jordan brings to this character that makes you endear to him the same way that you did with Rocky. And of course, being that I have name dropped him no less than 35 times so far in this video, the return of Rocky Balboa in the mentor and trainer role in this film, I think is absolutely brilliant, and I think gives us, without a doubt, in my opinion, the best performance that Sylvester Stallone has given in his entire career, to the point where it still burns my ass that he did not win the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Nothing but love for Mark Rylance, but that was Sylvester's year. The way that he still harnesses the emotion and some of that simple-minded charm and that just likability that has always been there in the best Rocky movies and the best Sylvester Stallone performances of that character, while also tapping into a little bit more of that elder age and that elder wisdom that he tries to instill in Adonis. All of the emotion regarding, again, the second movie where Adrian is not there and him still very much feeling and giving us as audience members that void in his life, now with the added void of Paulie in there. And of course the cancer storyline where he realizes that he's going to go down the same dark path, the same bit of struggle that his wife did. And the performance that Sylvester Stallone gives just in that little section of the film where he gets his diagnosis and just closes his eyes and exhales. And in that moment, you just feel all of the thoughts that would go on in the head of Rocky Balboa. And the way that he is choking up and holding back his emotions while telling his doctor that his wife already went through that. He's already seen the horrors of chemotherapy and he's fine. You know, he's reached that point of solace to where he's ready to go. And then, of course, being pulled back in by his relationship with Adonis Creed and the way that Michael B. Jordan reacts with him and acts back and forth with him about giving him something to go on for, something to keep him here. It's very powerful stuff. I mean, just talking about it gets me choked up. And the way that Sylvester Stallone brings all of that is just, like I said, the best he's ever been.
So, everything I got is moved on, and I'm here.
And of course, you've got to give nothing but props to Ryan Coogler, the person who directed this film, who wrote this film, who was the person that initially had this idea and presented it to Stallone in the studio and got the ball rolling on it. Very similar kind of storyline to Sylvester Stallone whenever he was trying to get his idea made back in the 1970s with the original Rocky. I mean, at this point, Ryan Coogler had already made Fruitvale Station, had already gotten a lot of awards and a lot of accommodation for that, but at the same time, he was still a very small indie filmmaker. He was still an up-and-comer, and trying to take on this beloved franchise and take it in a new direction and focus on a new character, he had nothing but doubt from all of the fans, just like me. It was like, what the fuck are you doing? No, we're not touching Rocky. Are you crazy? And the fact that he had such a good idea and such a great vision for this and was able to put together all of the pieces, all of the cast, all of the elements that made this movie so great, he's one of the main reasons why this film and now the Creed franchise has been so successful, because he just had a great initial vision and executed it pretty much to perfection. And to date, this still is my favorite effort by Ryan Coogler. I love the pace that he goes at in this. I love the different things that he is able to bring out of the actors, especially Stallone, the way that he is able to implement so many new elements that are exclusive to the Creed franchise while paying respect and harnessing so many things that are integral and important and vital about the Rocky films. The way that he is able to direct the camera work in certain segments, during some training sequences, during the very first fight where Adonis gets his first win and it's basically all one shot, and they keep transitioning back and forth from wide shots that show both fighters and you can see everything to kind of getting close and intimate in with one of the fighters. It's brilliantly shot, it's brilliantly executed, and I kind of look forward to seeing Ryan Coogler eventually come back to this franchise and doing even better. And something that so far in the Creed franchise I love so much is that they retroactively make some of the Rocky films and some of the creative decisions made in those films better. Like Creed 2 specifically is about the Dragos, and it makes Rocky 4 an even better film. This one, to me, makes the death of Apollo in Rocky 4 and the legacy between those two characters of Rocky and Apollo so much more powerful, so much more integral to the character of Rocky. I mean, Stallone to this day still says that he regrets killing Apollo Creed and should have kept him like crippled or some kind of paralyzation and kept him as like the Mickey character. I don't quite agree with that. Of course, we'll never know because we'll never see those films, but even if you're somebody that isn't a fan of the fact that he killed off Apollo Creed in Rocky 4, I feel like the Creed movies, the legacy of Adonis, makes that death so much more important and integral and retroactively a very good decision.
I'm gonna knock that son of a bitch down.
I know you are. You know why? Because you're a Creed, and I love you, kid.
And the themes that they explore through the legacy of Apollo Creed and how Adonis responds to that is something that I think most people can respond to, about, you know, the sins of the father and the legacy of the father, being in somebody's shadow, carving your own path while paying respect to your elders and where you came from. All of the complicated feelings that we all have had about our parents or our grandparents or some form of our legacy. It gets explored very well here, to where, again, one of those elements that's new to Creed but still has that same effect of just drawing you into these characters in this story. I also really like Tessa Thompson as the love interest for Adonis, even more so as the franchise has gone on. I expect I'll say the same thing about Creed 3. I think their chemistry is damn good. I think that her story in and of itself, while being a very small part of the film, is something that she has her own struggle, she has her own drive, she has her own demons that very much complements the character of Adonis in the way that he needs, and you immediately buy into how much their relationship blossoms and buds so quickly, because they quite literally are somebody that just comes together and fills the voids of the other. And I look forward to seeing the father and the husband life explored in Creed 3 all the way because of the way that it was all birthed in this first film. I also really enjoy the music in this film, both the music that they've implemented with the character of Bianca, but also a lot of the hip-hop soundtrack, something that they tried to implement in Rocky 5 and to me just felt so out of place and dated, and this very much feels at home. And especially the ways that they implement some of those original songs and original themes from the Rocky franchise. I mean, whenever Adonis stands up and you have that initial Rocky theme just kind of kick in the third act, man, I don't know any Rocky fan that wouldn't immediately just get perked up like, yeah, we're gonna whoop that ass.
Go get him, Dad.
And finally, much like the original Rocky, I really appreciate the direction that they go with framing the actual victory for Adonis by the end of this film. Just like the original Rocky, it's not about who wins and who loses. As much as that is the focus of getting into the ring, it's about him going the distance. It's about him proving himself, proving that he has a reason to be there. It's about him proving the fact that he does not have to live under his father's shadow and he can carve his own path. It's about him proving to himself that his decision to walk away from a very high-paying job.
Don't, okay, let me finish. I gotta prove it.
Prove what?
I'm not a mistake.
the decision to not rely on the very financially comfortable lifestyle of his adoptive mother and to go for this life that is very difficult, very hard, very bloody, and prove himself. I love the fact that they keep that in view the entire time, to where when he loses the fight by decision, just like the first Rocky film, it doesn't feel like a loss because he's already won. He's already proven himself, he's already gone the distance, and he has already carved out a name for Adonis Creed. Moving on to the mixed elements, to be honest with you, this is something that just my rewatch experience of Creed 1 and Creed 2 collectively kind of gave me the thought of, and it's very small in the grand scheme of things. And I hope that when I watch Creed 3, this is something that we have moved past by the third film. And it's that there's a certain level of immaturity, there's a certain level of bitterness and emotional reactivity that the character of Adonis Creed has, that while making him very much a different character than Rocky Balboa, which I think is important, it also puts a little bit of a struggle to completely endear yourself to that character at times. Like whenever he is talking down to Rocky and telling him to get his sick ass out of here, whenever he comes to visit him in the jail cell, paired with, like in Creed 2, whenever Rocky tells him, do not fight Drago, and he does it anyway and gets the shit kicked out of him, and he's in the hospital and immediately like starts talking to Rocky like it's his fault. That level of immaturity, while understandable for the character and the way the character is written and performed and the origins that we get for that character, those moments do kind of put a block up for me, and I imagine a lot of other people, where I'm just like, oh, dude, grow up a little bit. And they're always quickly followed by him realizing his mistakes and mending fences, especially with Rocky and Bianca at one point. But that is something that was in Creed, was also in Creed 2, and especially if it's in Creed 3, is going to be my one little bugaboo with the character of Adonis Creed, is the little immature outbursts. I hope we've moved past that by now.
Which one of your killers are here next? You pick them. You pick who's next.
Even the way that he reacts in the ring or in the pre-fight press stuff where you're like, come on, we'll go right now, come on. Just that young, cocky attitude stuff, again, makes sense, especially for this first film, in doses, but continues to be there for Creed 2, and the jury is out on Creed 3. But just that very different attitude to the character of Rocky that always seems so mature and good-hearted, albeit maybe a little simple-minded, is the only difference between those two characters that I think is maybe a slight downgrade. But overall, guys, I absolutely love this film. The last time that I ranked this franchise, this was my number 2, and we will see here this weekend when I re-rank it if it maintains that slot. But I love the rebirth of this franchise. I love these new characters. I love the treatment of the older characters, namely Rocky Balboa. The direction is spot on. It was just an absolute knockout punch, no pun intended, for a continuation of the Rocky legacy. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed this, please click over here for my whole playlist of all of my Rocky reviews. And of course, stay tuned tomorrow for my review of Creed 3. And you gotta like, share this video, and especially hit that subscribe button to make sure that you don't miss that review. As always, thank you for watching, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.